Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, this is going to be a difficult video, mainly because of the subject matter, but also because you're going to sit there puzzled as to what the hell is going on. We have a very rare thing. We have a female peed. Very rare. Very rare to catch them in the wild. But what's worse is that this female peed is also a trans female peed. That is to say, born female, and so we will refer to her as she throughout, pretends and wants to be a boy but isn't, has been caught once, right, doing this, avoided jail, presumably because it's female, has been caught twice doing it while pretending to be a male, and has avoided jail a second time. How many red flags do you need? Honestly, it's like Tiananmen Square. Unbelievable. And it is that rarest of beasts, though. A female trans and a pede. We'll take a look at this, but the government's own figures say that trans people are 12 times more likely to be sex offenders. I can understand it, and that's probably why this one is. However, that is very rare to see this. But the response from the courts is absolutely appalling, and this individual needs to go to prison for a long time. Rest of her life, I think. Let's take a look. So, trans Scots pedo caught with 3 children in her home avoids prison. What they haven't put there is again. Coral Scott was born female, wants to be called Ryan Scott now, but we won't call her that. We'll call her Coral because that's her name. Was convicted of a similar offence as a female called Coral Scott just last year, and was placed under a social work supervision order for 3 years. And there she is, face like a well-scalped arse, real sad. Kind of looks a bit sturgeon-y, really. But anyway, a transgender sex offender who was caught with 3 vulnerable children locked in her home has avoided a prison sentence. By the time police officers forced open PD Ryan Scott's door, Coral Scott's door, she had already been engaged in sexual activity with a 14-year-old girl. Scott, 21, who was convicted of a similar offence as a female called Coral Scott last year, was placed under social work supervision for 3 years. So you do it once, you get social work supervision. You do it a second time, and you get more social work supervision. I would suggest if you're doing it a second time, social work supervision is a bit shit. Doesn't work. Fiscal Deputy Charmaine Gilmartin told Dundee Sheriff's Court at noon on the 9th of April 2023, officers attended the address as they had reports that 3 high-risk, vulnerable children could be within. There was no reply to their knocking. Neighbours confirmed they had seen the accused and 3 others going into the property. A joiner was requested to come and force entry. While it was being forced, the accused eventually came and opened the door. 3 children were in the house. All were under 16 and they were taken into public protection by police and social workers. 2 of the children made admissions that there had been sexual contact between the accused and the 14-year-old girl, and she confirmed this. Coral Scott from Dundee admitted engaging in sexual activity with a 14-year-old girl on the 8th and 9th of April. She was made subject to conduct requirements. Not sent to jail. You do it once, you escape jail. You do it again, you escape jail again. This is Scotland. What do you have to do to have children protected? We've seen how you can R a child in Scotland and get punished by litter picking. This one, it's a supervisory court order. Not going to jail for doing this to children. You have a Scottish government that wants to sexualise children and talk to them from very, very young ages, preschool ages, about all sorts of sexual activity. I've got to say, to me, in my mind, Scotland is becoming the child abuse capital of the world. Thailand had a reputation. Vietnam had the reputation. Oh, Gary Glitter wanted to go to Vietnam because he thought, yeah, they can get away with it over there. Didn't need to, Gary. Come, live in Dundee. Seems to be open house up there. The whole system's geared up to providing sexualised children for older people. Scott, who was addressed as Mr. Scott, even though she isn't, throughout the proceedings, admitted kissing the child on the face while they were both stripped to their underwear. 1 month before the latest offence took place, Coral Scott was banned at the same court from starting any new relationship without special permission. Can't geld a woman, but there is the noose. She was banned from having any unsupervised contact with any child under the age of 16, but was allowed to walk free from court after a sheriff said the time spent in remand would count as the punishment. Oh, well, that's okay then. You've done it. You've been remanded. Okay, off you go. Doesn't matter if you do it again. You're still not going to prison next time. Scotland, eh? But then we all know what the P stands for in SMP, don't we? Scott, who was most recently being held at Pullman, was placed on the sex offenders register and under social work supervision for 3 years in that case. Sheriff Paul Brown imposed special conduct requirements, prohibiting contact with any person under 16 without permission and reporting any intimate relationships to the supervising officer. The court saw how Scott, who was 20, lured the schoolgirl back to her flat to engage in sexual activity on Valentine's Day, despite knowing she was only 14. Scott, who was born female and is therefore female, then tried to pervert the course of justice by taunting the frightened schoolgirl with death threats. Again, that should be an automatic prison sentence. The victim's mother, 33, said, "After it happened, my child changed. She became withdrawn, even violent, and she would not speak to us. We knew something had happened. We didn't know she had gone to meet someone. Then a friend got in touch and said this person had told others they were going to be meeting our daughter. They also said the person was called Coral Scott. We kept asking our daughter, who is Coral? She said she was called Ryan. We didn't understand. And it was weeks later when she finally told us this person had forced her to do things she didn't want to do. She said she was traumatised and paralysed with fear when it was happening. It broke our hearts to see what this monster had done to our little girl. I tell you what, this monster wouldn't have made it to court if it was my daughter. It destroyed our beautiful daughter. She was a child, and whether he was a man or a woman, she's a woman. This was an adult preying on a child and should therefore be in jail for a long, long time." In the previous case, Scott admitted engaging in sexual activity with or towards the 14-year-old girl, and in court on March the 23rd, the accused was referred to as Coral, was understood to be identifying as a female in prison. Well, because she is. Scott, who previously had convictions for violence, threatening behaviour and carrying a knife, used fake social media accounts to target the girl months later. I mean, come on. All these red flags. Convicted once. Convictions for violence. Threatening behaviour. Carrying a knife. And still not in prison. What the hell do you have to do in Scotland to get yourself put in prison? They're releasing prisoners out of prisons in Scotland because the jails are filled. What are they filled with? Unbelievable, isn't it? Fiscal Deputy Joanna Rishi told the court the accused and the girl initially developed a friendship on Snapchat through mutual friends group. On February 14th, 2022, she said the girl and her met at the McManus Galleries in Dundee. She and the accused then travelled to the accused address by bus. They were initially alone and sat in the living room watching movies. A short time later, the accused friends arrived. The accused behaviour changed and began to show off by kissing and sucking the girl's neck, leaving bruising. They kissed each other on the lips. I don't want to go through this, but anyway, Scott accused the young girl of pushing for it. And later, her friend told the police that Scott was well aware the victim was just 14. The Snapchat voice message, Scott told the victim, "See you next time. See the next time I see you. You better not be in my scheme, or I will effing do you. You're an effing slag," I think the word there is. Miss Ritchie, said she spoke to her mum and was upset at the thought the accused was going to come and get her. Scott was reported to the police and then traced and charged on the 1st of May, 9 days later, when she was still already subject to 6 bail orders. 6. Why not in prison? 6 bail orders and a supervision, and then he's free to do this again. She received... sorry, I missed a line there. Scott was reported to the police, traced... Oh, yes, I got that. She received a Snapchat friend request from Amelia, who was one of Coral's pretending people. She assumed this was someone out of school and accepted the friend request. It was 2 voice messages from Scott. She said, So see if I get the jail, mate. You're effed, mate. You're dead. Never met somebody so horrible in my life. The girl used a second device to record the messages and play them back to her mother. Scott admitted sending the messages, which threatened the girl and tried to frighten her so she would not give evidence. By the time of the final message, Scott had been released on 6 bail orders and a supervision order, and has now been freed and released to carry on doing this. A grown woman, a predator, 2 convictions for this, for sexual with a child, knife carrying, violence, threatening to kill. Scotland, will you lock somebody up someday? Will you ever protect children? Hardly likely while you've got the PEDs running the country, I know. The SNP, pervs, PEDs and predators. And that's why people like this can run free in Scotland. Well done. And I hope all you SNP voters keep voting for this. It could be your daughters next. Your granddaughters. Is that what you want? Seems to be. Keep putting the X in the box, don't you? Coming up. We really shouldn't be surprised that you have a court system in Scotland that is very, very sympathetic to people who do this to children. Because after all, the entire country is run by degenerate perverts who think that children are there for their amusement, I suppose. They're certainly not there to be protected. Not in today's SNP-run Scotland. We've seen how they don't want to stop the sexualisation of the children. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, what these people do, or what they do when they're away from the spotlight, what they do when they're in private. Yeah, it makes you wonder why the education minister at the time was so keen to push this agenda. Old Swinney, 5 years education minister, very, very keen on pushing the sexualisation of children for some inexplicable reason. And now he's First Minister and he doesn't want to protect children by banning the teaching of children under 9 sex education. Again, weird, isn't it? Weird. And he's been involved in the heart of the SNP for all these years. I think we're all drawing our own conclusions, aren't we, about the SNP. I'll stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button. And do remember, if you're an SNP voter, these are the people you're voting for. Think again. Bye.